Well, hiya. Do you like making things? Do you find it hard to make those things with software you've never used before? Well, I am the person for you. My name's MTFPrint. I like to design things and talk about designing them and printing them out every so often. And I wanted to make a small series showing off how to navigate and use the tools and UI in Fusion 360. And the perfect start to that series would be showing you how to navigate the UI first and foremost. And I want to show you how I learned how to do it and what I thought was important to know. And for that, we're going to be using our lovely assistant Qbert here. Say hi, Qbert. And he's going to help us demonstrate all this lovely UI everywhere around this screen. So that way, when you look at it, it's not so intimidating. And luckily, Fusion does a really good job of separating out things that are well grouped together. So let's get into it. We're going to start left to right, top to bottom. So the very first thing you're going to see is you're going to see these dots up in the left-hand corner. That is your show data panel. What your data panel is going to be is all of your projects. So you can see here all of my lovely projects that I'm pretty proud of. And you can see you can make folders. I've got Nemesis Prime upgrade parts for my Nemesis Prime figure. And pretty much anything you save is gonna just be in your data folder. It's gonna be a project. You can get out of that by hitting this X. Next to the data panel, you're going to see file like you would in any other program. You can drop down new design, new electronics design, new drawings. The most important ones you're going to find here, because you can open everything from the data panel, you're going to find save and save as, and even then that's literally right next to it. Export, I've never used through the file menu, so that's interesting. Right next to file, you're going to find save, which is the nice little floppy disk, which used to go in computers, fun facts. And that'll just let you save whatever you're doing into your data panel. So you can see it has a little rotating wheel. It's just saving and uploading up to the cloud, because Fusion 360 does operate on the cloud. Next to save, you're going to find your undo and redo buttons. And you're going to love this undo button because it's going to save your life many a times. And next to undo and redo, you're going to have your home tab, which will take you to pretty much a home page that I don't like navigating too much, so I don't really go there too often. To the right of home, you're going to see whatever projects you have open at the time. If you have multiple, this will look just like a tab like in Firefox or Chrome, and it'll say your project name and then what version you're on. So this is my testing place. I have a little project folder for all my testing stuff, and pretty much it's just experimenting and doing horrible experiments on Qbert. God bless that little soldier. Next to that, new design, same thing. You open it, it's just like a tab. And then if you're using Fusion 360 and you're not paying for it, as in like a professional setting, you're going to see upgrade, and then you're going to see extensions. And if you hit extensions, it's just going to ask you to get a subscription. To the right of the extensions, you're going to see your job status, whether or not you're working online. You're going to see your notifications next to your job status. Mine's completely empty, but normally it'll have like, oh, there's an update, or oh, there you need to restart Fusion, or hey, something happened. And then we get to help. And help is a very good little drop down to have, because help will give you things like show learning panel. And show learning panel, I've been using Fusion for about a year. And this is why I'm saying I want to show you the things that I would want to know, because I did not know this show learning panel existed until 2 days ago, and it would have been extremely helpful. So what show learning panel does is it gives you guidance and learning. So learning, it runs you through making simple stuff. But guidance allows you to click on any tool and it'll pop up a step-by-step guide on how to use that tool. That is very helpful if you were just starting out. It is wonderful. So that's definitely something you want to keep your eye on. You just go to help, show learning panel. That'll give you a lot of information. It'll save you probably a lot of Googling. Underneath that, we have learning and documentation, self-paced learning, the API, setups, communities, support. Fusion has really good support, so definitely take advantage of this help panel. Underneath all of our top UI, we have the tools, I guess you could call them. We have solid, surface, mesh, sheet metal, plastic, and utilities. I only really mess with solid and surface if I'm feeling spicy. So as I learn how to use the other tools, I want to teach you how to use them, because the best way to teach someone something is, best way to teach someone something is to learn it yourself. So that'll be fine, and we'll go over all those in hopefully future videos. Underneath our tools, we have the browser. The browser can be minimized like so, and I don't know why you would do that, but you can. And what that's gonna, I don't want you comment. Don't make comments on my video. Well, actually, that's not true. You make all the comments you want. If you have any questions about anything I've been talking about so far, please leave a comment down below. I love to hear from you, and I just want to make it easier for you to start making things that you love. That's my whole goal. I want everyone to just have a good entry point to be as creative as possible. So underneath the browser, you're going to see everything to do with your object. Okay, so we got Qbert here. So you're going to have your main object space, I guess I would call it, and this is going to be testing place. You're going to have your document settings, and if you click on the arrows, you can drop down everything related to that folder. So document settings is going to have units. You can see I have millimeters in my units. If you want to do inches or centimeters, you just click on this little change active units note, and it's going to bring up this little panel, and you can change it to centimeter, millimeter, meter, inch, and foot. And you can set it as default if you change it. I believe it was set to inches when I first installed it, and I changed it to millimeters because if you use a 3D printer, generally you're going to be working in 100 millimeter cubed, 250 millimeter cubed, and it makes it easier. So we can just collapse that. Named views, these are going to be your top, front, right, and home. And what that is this cube right here. You have front, you can click the little arrows to rotate it to the top, back, bottom, and it's just going to rotate your workspace. You can also click on the cube and hold and drag around and it'll pivot. You can click on the home and it'll give you this like isometric view of it. Or you can also rotate if you click on these little arrows that are rotated. But you can do all of that generally with the mouse as well. If you've used Blender, it's kind of like the numpad keys with your views. So next we have origin, and what you'll see next to origin is this little crossed out eyeball. And what that means is you cannot see what this folder contains. So you can drop it down and you can see all of that, but you can see the eyeballs are all glossed over. So when you click the eyeball, this little yellow box appears. And when you click the eyeball, say on bodies, Qbert disappears. So this is going to be your origin point, and your origin point is going to be your X, Y, and Z axes. That little white dot is dead center. The red is going to be X, the yellow is going to be Y, and the blue is going to be Z. And you'll see over here, when I highlight over them, what they are highlights. And so these orange pieces are your profile planes. So that's going to be your XY profile plane, your YZ profile plane. your XZ profile plane. And what you're going to use those for are sketches. You're going to draw sketches on those profile planes. Next up, we get to actual Qbert. And to do that, we should probably see Qbert. So let's get rid of our origin. Let's get to our body. Now you'll notice Qbert is his own little separate folder here. And you can see this little body picture right there. And what that is Qbert is his own component. The way you do that is assemble new component. And that's going to create a separate entry in your grand design of things that you can change. So Qbert has his own origin point. He'll have his own sketches in his folder as long as you have this little circle clicked on. So now it's selecting Qbert as my project space. My project space within a project space. This is a 4D cube. Well, this is a 3D cube, but you know, you get it. Right, Qbert? Cool. So with Qbert, you have your origin, but then you also have your bodies. And what a body is any 3D object. So Qbert started out as a little sketch of a box, and I extruded him straight up and made him into a usable 3D object where I can highlight all of his sides. I can do whatever I want with him. So you can see if you click on Qbert under the bodies, it'll highlight that Qbert body. If I was to make a second Qbert and rename it Qbert with a Q, I could select them individually. And it just makes it easy to keep track of what you're doing. And the best thing to do when you make bodies and sketches is to right click and rename. And while I'm here, I'll just show you a little bit of the menus, especially for bodies. You have things such as move and copy, move to group. You can create components from bodies. So what that means is if you realized like midway through a project you need a certain body to be its own component to interact better with other components, you can do that from there. Appearance is going to be the color changing. So if any of you watched my mushroom video, you can see that I changed the colors of it a little bit. That's how I did that. Texture mapping. The important one is going to be save as mesh, because save as mesh allows you to 3D print. It's going to allow you to put your file into your slicer. And the one thing I will tell you is if you hit save as mesh, you will see refinement right here. Put that to high, because if you do a circle, it is going to come out extremely geometric if you do not put that to high. So now we're wrapped up with bodies for right now. Brings us to sketches. And sketches are your drawings. Before you can make a 3D body, you need to make a sketch, unless you're doing surface. I think you can just do create form. So we'll get rid of Qbert for a little bit, and we'll just look at our sketches. And I have my base sketch, and this is the box that I created for Qbert. And I'll get into sketches in the next video. I didn't think the UI would be this long, but I think it's very important to get literal basics down before anything else. So you have your base sketch, and I just drew that on the, I can check. I drew that on the XY plane. And then I just extruded that up. But on top of the base sketch, you can also draw a sketch on a body. So when I drew Qbert, he didn't have a face. So I drew his face. And that's slightly creepy, but you know, it works. And that's what he looks like if you do not hide your sketches. It's very disorienting for me. So I try to hide my sketches whenever I can, and they will automatically hide if you extrude, because you don't want to see that at that point, or it assumes you don't want to see them at that point. So we'll just go down, straight down from our workspace, and we'll see comments. You can add comments, do whatever you want. Hey, here I changed this. Hey, I did this at this point. Hey, remember to do that. Simple comments. To the right of comments are a lot of mouse movement. Everything you can do up to display settings, you can do with your mouse. Constrained orbit, you can click on constrained orbit and you can just right click on your mouse and it'll orbit your project. You can hit escape to get out of it. Free orbit, same thing, except it's a lot more vertigo-y. It's not constrained to where your mouse is. I think it's moving the entire workspace. You can also do that by holding shift and middle click. And wherever you middle click will become your orbit. And I like to leave it on constrained orbit because I think that matters as far as your middle click. Next up we have look at. And look at, you can select any body, I'm assuming sketch, and you just click it and it'll zoom out and show you the entire thing. Pan, you just right click and move it around. That is what happens if you just hit the middle mouse button. You just hold it, you can pan around. Zoom, pretty self-explanatory. You zoom in, you zoom out. That's done also with the middle mouse wheel scrolling up and down. And that'll be how you navigate. Mainly you'll just pan, you'll rotate, you'll zoom in and out. It's pretty good to get in the habit of holding shift and using the mouse for those things. Zoom window lets you select a little window and it'll zoom in on it. I think that's neat. I don't really see how I would use that, but hey, you know, fit just lets you fit everything in there, I assume. Now we get on to display settings. Display settings has your visual style, so you can change how your workspace looks and how your objects look. Shaded with hidden edges, shaded with visible edges, your environment. Dark Scott, that's creepy. Gray room. I use photo booth just because it's what was on there. Effects, object visibility. You can select what objects or elements are visible at all times. Camera, go in here and change this to orthographic. And the reason is if you change it to, it starts in perspective if I remember correctly. And changing it to orthographic will do you a lot of good because it'll let you see your object head on. You won't have like curves or extra bits hanging off the side, and you can see everything objectively as what it is, and that'll be great for if you want to design for printing or machining or whatever you want. Next we have the grid and snaps. When you get Fusion, it will start out with a grid like this. I just disable the grid because the grid will pop up anytime you do a sketch. So you don't need the grid on at all times. Snap to grid is very good if you want to just quickly freehand stuff but want it to be relatively precise. You can click on grid settings. And then windows give you multiple windows, which are good for like multiple viewpoints for one project. And then finally, as we reach the bottom of the Fusion 360 window, you can see we have our timeline. And what's really cool about Fusion 360 is you can have a timeline of your events. So if you need to go back and change something, you can. If I didn't like how he looked, I can change that smile. I can change his sketch. I didn't like how he wasn't tall enough, so I can go back and change him to a rectangle. So what we're going to look at first is your playback features, and that's going to work like any timeline in a slideshow. So if you start your cursor here and you press play, it'll take you through everything you did. You can go back one, you can jump forward all the way ahead. And it'll just give you like, I think that's more visual than anything else. I think what's really important though is this timekeeper cursor. I'm not sure what they call it. And what that does is you can hold it down and you can drag it to events in your timeline. So if you need to change something, and when you change it, it's going to say, hey, this might affect this component or that component or this feature. You can scroll all the way back and change it before you even get to that point. You can also do it by right-clicking on any element and just hitting edit. And it'll automatically blur out everything else, and you can just edit that feature that you want. And then all the way to the right of our timeline, we have this little gear, and it just has do not capture design history. Component color swatch is something. Oh, it'll give multiple different colors to all of your different components. See, I learned something today. It's always good to learn. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for today. I think we covered a lot of the bare minimum basics of where generally a lot of the UI is and how you would realistically use it. A lot of the UI elements you're not going to use on your first get. It's going to take you a really long time where you're going to see something and go, oh, hey, I did not know that was there. I did not know this show learning panel was here. It would have been extremely helpful. So hopefully I pointed out something for you that made you go, oh, that's really cool. I can use that. And if you have any questions at all about anything I've talked about, or any questions that you just have of, hey, how can I do this? I will try my best to answer those questions to my knowledge base, and I'll Google it. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, I would love to keep doing it. So please make sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends, because I like making cool stuff and I want to keep making cool stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and thanks for hanging out with me.